Welcome to True Horror Vault. There are some places where after night falls, darkness doesn't just cover your surroundings. It feels as though someone is watching you from within the dark itself. Deep in the remote woodlands of America, there are old cabins and houses situated miles away from the nearest neighbor. During the day, these places are quiet, beautiful, almost peaceful like paradise. But once the sun goes down, that same forest transforms into a completely different world. Today's story centers around one such house. Deep inside the dense forests of northwestern Maine, far away from civilization, stood an old wooden house. The surrounding forest was so dense that even in winter, after the leaves had fallen, sunlight barely managed to reach the ground. An ordinary man went there to spend a few nights alone. He was not a paranormal investigator. He had no particular belief in ghosts or spirits. He simply wanted to get away from the noise of the city for a few days. But after spending a few nights in that house, he could never stay alone in a forest house ever again. This is the terrifying, reconstructed story of those events. Story 1. The Last House in the Forest. My name is Ethan Miller. I've always been a city person. I worked in Portland, Maine at a small software company. The job wasn't bad. But after doing the same routine for several years, I felt like I was standing in the exact same spot every single day. Office, apartment, work, sleep, office again. So, near the end of one autumn, I decided to take a few days off and get away from everything. No hotels, no resorts. I wanted a place with no phone signal, no internet, and no people around for miles. Searching online, I found an advertisement for an old wooden house. It was located deep in the woods of northwestern Maine, close to a small lake, about a 40-minute drive from the nearest town. And the closest house was almost 4 miles away. The owner had written in the ad, "Quiet, private, surrounded by woods." At the time, those words sounded extremely appealing to me. I still remember the uneasy feeling I got when I first saw the photo in the listing. The house looked nice in the picture. An old 2-story wooden cabin, a small porch in front, a wooden rocking chair beside the porch. And behind the house, as far as the eye could see, were trees. Countless trees. No neighbors. No roads. No cars. Just forest. I told myself back then, perfect. Little did I know, that very word would later become one of my most terrifying memories. I set off on a Friday afternoon. The first few hours of driving were normal, from the highway to smaller roads, then even smaller roads. Eventually, the paved road ended. My GPS instructed me to keep going forward. By the time I entered the first gravel road, dusk had almost fallen. Huge pine trees lined both sides of the road. In some places, the trees were so dense it felt like I was driving through a wall of green. The sun was dropping below the horizon. The last light of day was trapped above the treetops. Then suddenly, my phone signal disappeared. I chuckled to myself. After all, this is what I wanted. But a few minutes later, the GPS stopped working as well. I pulled over and pulled out the written directions on paper. I had about 7 more miles to go. Then I had to cross an old wooden bridge and take a narrow road to the right. Follow that road for about a mile. And then the house. Everything was going smoothly until I reached that wooden bridge. Black water flowed beneath the bridge. I stopped the car and stared outside for a few seconds. No bird singing. No frogs. Even the sound of the water was barely audible. It was strange. The forest had gone completely silent. I still didn't pay much attention to it. I drove across the bridge and turned right. About 10 minutes later, I saw the house. The house looked even older than it did in the photos. A 2-story wooden structure. The paint had peeled off in many places. The wood of the front porch had turned dark with age. An old woodcutting machine lay discarded on one side. In front of the house was a small fire pit, flanked by 3 dry wooden logs. I stepped out of the car and looked around. The very first thought that crossed my mind was, no one actually lives here. No one at all. I opened the front door and walked inside. Inside was a large living room, a fireplace, an old leather sofa, a wooden dining table, a few landscape paintings on the walls. Everything was clean, but one detail felt odd. Even though the house looked like it had been empty for a long time, it felt as if someone had left just recently. There was an empty coffee mug on the dining table, an old radio on the kitchen counter, and beside the fireplace sat a small wooden box. I didn't open the box. On the first night, I simply heated up some food, lit a fire, and sat on the sofa with a beer. Outside, it was pitch black. Nothing outside the window except the dark shadows of trees. I opened my laptop. Then I remembered I came here to get away from all of this. So I shut the laptop down. The first few hours passed in complete peace. It was around 10:30 p.m. I was getting up to head to the upstairs bedroom. Right then, I heard a sound. I froze. Is someone walking outside? I waited for a few seconds. Nothing. I went to the window and pulled back the curtain. Darkness. Just trees. I grabbed a flashlight and went outside. I shone the light around from the porch. Nothing was there. I told myself, probably a branch. I went back inside, locked the door, and headed upstairs. At 1:17 a.m., I woke up. I knew the exact time because my phone was right next to the bed. At first, I couldn't figure out why I had woken up. Then I heard it. Someone was walking downstairs. Very slowly. I sat up in bed. My initial thought was that an animal had gotten in, maybe a raccoon. But the sound didn't belong to an animal. It was the sound of human footsteps. One step, then a pause, then another step, as if someone was walking very carefully. I sat still for a few seconds. Then the footsteps stopped. I slowly got out of bed. I walked to the bedroom door and pressed my ear against it. Nothing. I opened the door. It was pitch black at the bottom of the stairs. I switched on my phone's flashlight. Hello? No response. I began walking down the stairs. The wood creaked with every single step. Reaching the living room, I shone the light around. No one was there. The kitchen was empty. The dining room was empty. I checked the front door. It was completely locked. Then my eyes suddenly fell upon the dining table. The coffee mug sitting there was no longer where it had been before. It was now placed right in the middle of the table. I stared at it for a few seconds. Then I convinced myself that I was just remembering wrong. I went back upstairs. No other sounds occurred that night. When I woke up the next morning, my fear was almost gone. In the daylight, the house looked normal again. I made coffee. Then I went for a walk behind the house. There was a narrow trail behind the building. After walking for about 10 minutes, I spotted an old wooden shed. The door was shut, but right next to the door I saw something strange. Footprints in the dirt. Fresh ones. Human boot prints. I knelt down to examine them. The prints led toward the house, but there were no returning footprints. I looked around. Suddenly, a cold shiver ran through my body, because right then I realized this footprint trail led straight to ground right beneath my bedroom window. Where it ended, I rushed back inside the house. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe a hunter had passed through, or maybe they were footprints left by a previous guest. I tried to put out of my mind. The afternoon passed quietly. I read a book. I built a fire. Then I took a short nap in the late afternoon. After dusk, it started to rain. As the night progressed, the rain grew heavier. I was sitting in front of the fireplace. Then, a sound came from the upper floor. I raised my head. The sound happened again. The room is empty, I muttered to myself. On the second floor, besides my bedroom, there was another small room. I hadn't tried opening it earlier that day, but this time, I grabbed the flashlight and went up the stairs. Reaching the upstairs hallway, I saw that the door to the small room was slightly ajar. I was certain that door had been shut in the afternoon. I slowly reached out my hand and pushed the door open. The room was nearly empty. An old wooden chair, a broken mirror, and a wooden box resting against the wall. I opened the box. Inside were a few old photographs. I began looking through them one by one. Every picture showed the exact same house, but almost all the photos were 20 or more years old. When I reached the last photo, I stopped. In the picture, 5 people were standing in front of the house. A man, a woman, 3 children. Behind them stood the same forest. I turned the photo over. Handwritten on the back was Summer 1998, and beneath it another sentence, "Don't let them inside." For a few seconds, I couldn't process it. Don't let them inside. Who? I put the photo down. Right at that moment, 3 knocks echoed at the front door downstairs. I froze in place. Someone was knocking on the door. It was almost 11 p.m. In the middle of these woods, I made no sound. Knock again, louder this time. I stood at the top of the stairs, staring down. No light was coming from under the front door, just darkness. Then, a voice, very low, very calm. "Ethan." My heart felt like it stopped because I had never told the house owner my name. He only had my booking information. But even so, no one should be standing at the door in the middle of the night calling out my name. I didn't answer. The voice spoke again. "Ethan, open the door." I didn't know what to do. Then the door handle rattled. I stepped backward. It was locked. The handle turned once. Then it stopped. A few seconds of silence followed. And then a very faint giggle. I didn't wait around. I ran into the bedroom and locked the door. Sitting beside the bed, I grabbed my phone. No signal. I tried dialing 911. The call wouldn't go through. More noises came from outside. Someone was walking on the porch. Then, past my bedroom window, a shadow glided by. I held my breath, watching. A tall, human-like shadow. But its head was bent unnaturally low. I couldn't pull back the curtain. I just sat there. After about an hour, the noises stopped. As soon as dawn broke, I decided to get into my car and leave. I didn't pack my things. I didn't make breakfast. I just grabbed my car keys and went downstairs. As soon as I opened the front door, I saw wet footprints on the wooden porch floor. The footprints started right in front of the door, and then led straight to the area beneath my bedroom window. I was walking toward the car when my eyes happened to glance up at the top window of the house. Someone was standing there, a woman, motionless, staring down at me. I stared back for a few seconds. Then I blinked. The window was empty. I didn't stay another second. I got into the car and drove toward the main road as fast as I could. About 2 hours later, I reached a small town. I stopped at a local diner and ordered coffee. I didn't mention the house to the owner, but the elderly man standing behind the counter suddenly looked at me and said, "You stayed at the Miller cabin, didn't you?" My hand froze. I asked, "How did you know?" He stared at me for a few seconds, then said, "Because nobody stays there anymore." I tried to laugh it off and said, "I was literally there last night." The smile faded from his face. He stayed silent for a moment before saying, "That's impossible." I asked him why. He told me the house hadn't been rented out for nearly 8 years. I said, "But I booked it online and went there." The man shook his head. Then he said something I've never been able to forget to this day. "Son, that house burned down 8 years ago." I thought he was joking, but he wasn't. He pulled an old newspaper out from under the counter. The date was from 8 years ago. The headline read, "Fire at Isolated Forest Cabin. A woman and her 3 children missing. The homeowner also missing. No one was ever found." I stared at the picture in the newspaper. The house in the photo was the exact same house I had stayed in the night before. But the most terrifying part was something else. Below the photo, an old family photograph was printed. Standing there were the exact same 5 people. The man, the woman, the 3 children. I stared at the picture. Then I remembered the photograph I had found the night before, with a note written on the back, "Don't let them inside." I hadn't noticed one thing back then. Out of the 5 people in the front of that photo, I had clearly seen the man's face, and his face looked terrifyingly familiar, because the profile picture of the host on the booking confirmation featured that exact same face. I searched for that place many times afterward. Old online property records, local newspaper archives, everything. To be honest, I never found a reliable record that definitively proved the house I stayed in belonged to dead people. But there is one thing I still cannot explain. There was a photo on my phone from that trip. I had taken it right before leaving the house. I don't even remember taking it. The photo showed the front porch of the house, morning light, an empty rocking chair, and the front door. But inside the glass panel of the door, a woman was standing. Beside her were 3 small shadows, and right behind them was a tall man. I deleted the photo, but before I did, I zoomed in one last time. The man's face was looking directly into the camera, and his lips were slightly open, as if he was saying something. After zooming in as far as I could, I was able to read just 3 words. "You came back." I never spent the night in an isolated cabin again. Even today, when I see a picture of secluded forest, I don't look at the trees first. I look for whether there's a house hidden between the trees. And if I see a light burning in a window, I never assume someone is in there alone. I wonder if someone is waiting. Story 2, The Door in the Oregon Woods. My name is Marcus Reed. I worked for a small construction company outside Portland, Oregon. I never really liked city life, especially during winter. The daily rush of work, the sound of traffic, the crowds, all together. It made me feel like I just want to disappear from the world for a few days. In late October 2024, I got that exact opportunity. An old friend of mine, Daniel, told me about a place, an old hunting cabin near Mount Hood National Forest. It wasn't a resort. It wasn't connected to any electricity grid directly. There was a generator, a wood-burning stove, and an old well. Daniel had said, "Marcus, you'll love the place. There's no one around for miles." I asked, "Is the cabin safe?" He chuckled and replied, "Safe? Absolutely. Just don't go into the woods behind the house after dark." I thought he was joking at the time. I was wrong. I left Portland on Saturday morning. The sky was gray. The Oregon autumn roads were covered in wet leaves. Turning off the highway, the road gradually narrowed, then the paved road ended. My phone's signal eventually dropped completely. The GPS showed my location, but the map stopped updating. Daniel had written down directions for me beforehand. Take an old logging road for about 12 miles, then come to a split in the road. The left road leads to the river. The right leads toward the mountain. Take the right. After driving on the gravel road for about 40 minutes, I spotted the cabin. At first glance, I liked the place. A single-story wooden cabin, a small porch in front, a mountain slope behind it, surrounded by Douglas fir and cedar trees. An old pickup truck was parked in front of the house. Its wheels were sunken almost halfway into the dirt. I assumed it belonged to the owner. I got out of the car and looked around. No sound of birds, just the wind. But strangely enough, standing in front of the house, I felt as though someone was watching me. I looked around several times. No one was there. I told myself, it's just the woods. Then I opened the door and stepped inside. The interior of the cabin was simple. An old sofa in the living room, a stone fireplace, deer antlers mounted on the wall, a small kitchen, 2 bedrooms, and at the end of the hallway stood a wooden door. The door had no handle on it, just an old metal latch. At first, I thought it was a storage closet. I was about to lift the latch. Right then, I remembered Daniel's words. Don't go into the woods behind the house after dark. What did this door have to do with the forest? I didn't dwell on it at the time. I let go of the latch. The afternoon passed peacefully. I lit a fire, made coffee, then sat on the porch watching the rain. In the evening, I noticed something strange. The pickup truck parked in front of the house. Its driver's side door was slightly open. I thought the owner must have been in a hurry when leaving. I went over and closed the door. Then I went back inside. Around 10 p.m., I shut off the generator. The cabin went dark. I lit a candle and sat reading a book. A storm was brewing outside. Suddenly, a sound came from behind the house. "Marcus." I set the book down. The sound was so low I couldn't be sure if I had actually heard it. I heard it again. "Marcus." Clear this time. Someone was calling my name. I stood up. I stayed quiet for a few seconds. Then I realized the sound hadn't come from inside the house. It had come from the woods behind it. I walked over to the porch door and stood there, but I didn't dare look outside. Around 1 a.m., I was lying in bed. Sleep wouldn't come. Wind outside. Rain. The rustling of trees. Then suddenly, knock, knock, knock. I sat up straight. Someone was knocking on the front door. I looked at the clock. 1:13 a.m. Who would come out here in the middle of these woods at this hour? I didn't get out of bed. The knocking returned. Knock, knock, knock. I whispered softly. Who's there? No answer. I called out again. Hello? Then a male voice spoke. Marcus. Open the door. My chest went cold because the voice sounded just like Daniel. I stared at the door. Daniel? No answer. Then again, open the door. I asked, where are you? A brief silence outside. Then the voice said, I'm behind you. Every hair on my body stood up. I spun around immediately. The bedroom door was open. The hallway was pitch black. No one was there. I grabbed the flashlight beside my bed. I shone the beam down the hallway. Nothing. But then, the wooden door at the end of the hall was open. I was positive that door had been latched shut. I didn't approach it. Instead, I pulled the bedroom door shut and locked it. When morning arrived, I tried calling Daniel. No signal. I turned on the generator and looked for an old landline. There was no landline in the cabin. I decided to pack up my car and leave. But when I got to my car, I saw the pickup truck was gone. I was stunned. I had arrived in my own car. That pickup wasn't mine. Yet it had been standing right there yesterday. I searched around the area. It was nowhere to be seen. Then I noticed something in the dirt. Tire tracks cut into the wet mud. They led straight toward the forest behind the house. I followed the tracks. After walking about 100 yards, I reached an old clearing in the trees. There was a dilapidated shed, and standing in front of that shed was the pickup truck. The door was wide open. No one was inside. An old photograph lay resting on the dashboard. I picked up the photo. 3 people were standing in the picture. A man, a woman, and a teenage boy. Behind them was the exact same cabin, written beneath the picture. October 2007. I slipped the photo into my pocket. Then I rushed back to the cabin. That afternoon, Daniel finally called. The cell signal had suddenly returned. I recounted everything to him. About the pickup truck. About the photo. He went dead silent for a few moments. Then he asked, Marcus, what truck? I replied, an old green pickup. He said, there's no truck out there. I said, there was... He repeated, no. Marcus, listen to me. There are no vehicles on that property. I brought up the photograph. Then he suddenly asked, did you open the door then in the hallway? I said, no. He said, good. He stayed silent for a few seconds before adding, don't open it. I asked, why? He replied, because there is no room behind that door. I didn't say anything. He continued, it opens directly into the woods. I wanted to laugh it off, but I couldn't because I knew the layout of the door. It was located at the far end of the interior hallway, on the outside wall of the house. There wasn't supposed to be any door in that spot. After nightfall, I walked up to the door once more. I placed my hand on the latch. Then I hesitated. Cold air was seeping in from under the door. Along with the breeze came a distinct smell, damp soil, and decaying leaves. I slowly lifted the latch and opened the door. There was no storage room on the other side. Truly, just the woods. But the strange part was, it was dusk outside. There was still some lingering light in front of the house. Yet the forest behind this door looked as dark as midnight. I stood in the doorway. Then I saw them, footprints in the mud, dozens of them, human footprints. All of them emerged from the woods and ended right in front of the door. Not a single pair led back inside. I was about to shut the door. Right then, a child's voice echoed from deep within the woods. Dad. I froze. Then again, Dad, please. I knew I was alone. I knew no child belonged out here. I slammed the door shut and secured the latch. Then I stayed awake for the rest of the night. Around 2:40 a.m., the sound returned. Scratch, scratch, scratch. Someone was scratching against the wood on the other side of the door. I sat huddled in the bedroom. Then a voice whispered, "Marcus." I didn't answer. "Marcus." Then, "Let me in." I stayed beneath the blanket. After a few minutes, the sound ceased. I thought it was finally over. Right then, a shadow fell across my bedroom window. I looked toward the glass. Someone was standing outside. A person, unusually tall. Still, then the shadow slowly dropped down below the window line, as if someone had knelt down. I couldn't watch anymore. I closed my eyes and sat there. About 10 minutes later, a sound tapped against the window pane again. SFX. 3 soft taps on the window glass. Tap, tap, tap. Then a whisper. "Marcus." That's when I understood. It wasn't just outside the house. It knew exactly where I was. Around 5 a.m., I got into my car and drove away. This time, I didn't look back. After driving a few miles, I reached the main road and pulled over. That's where Daniel met up with me. He looked at my car and asked, "Did you leave during the night?" I said, "Yes." He went quiet for a moment. Then he asked, "Did you open the door?" I told him the truth. "Yes." His expression changed instantly. He said, "Marcus, a family used to live in that cabin back in 2007. I remember the photograph." He continued, "One night, their pickup truck was found near the woods, but the 3 family members were never seen again." I asked, "What about the cabin?" He said, "The property was abandoned a few years later." I said, "But I was just staying there." He shook his head. "I know." I looked at him. "You know?" He said, "Because the cabin you stayed in isn't the real cabin." I couldn't make sense of it. He looked at me and said, "The foundation of the real cabin is still there, but the cabin you were inside was torn down almost 15 years ago." I was stunned into silence. Then where was I? Daniel didn't answer. He simply said, "That door you opened was meant to stay closed." I returned to Portland that very day. Later, I looked up the property records. Daniel was telling the truth, but the most disturbing part happened a few weeks later. While backing up old photos on my phone, I came across that photo again, the one I had taken from the pickup truck. I zoomed in on the photo. 3 people, man, woman, boy, the cabin behind them. I hadn't looked closely at it before. This time I noticed someone was standing near the cabin door. A woman. She was looking straight at the camera, and next to her was a teenage boy. I zoomed in further on the boy. His face became clear. My heart sank into my stomach, because the boy's age, his features, everything looked identical to me. But the photo was dated 2007, and I was already alive back then. On the back of the photo, it read, "Don't open the door after dark." I closed the picture immediately. A few nights later, at 2:40 a.m., 3 knocks echoed on the door of my own apartment. I didn't go near the door. Then, a child's voice called out from outside. A very familiar voice. "Dad." I have never been a father. And ever since that night, I have never tried to find out who is standing on the other side of a door, because some doors are not built to be opened. Some doors are just waiting until you make the mistake of opening them. Story 3. The house where no one lived. My name is Chloe Bennett. Even today, when I look back at those events, one thought crosses my mind above everything else. My mistake didn't begin when I stepped into that house. My mistake was the very moment I looked at the house and fell in love with it. Because some places look so quiet from the outside, only after stepping inside do you realize that peace isn't normal. October 2019. I was living in Boston at the time, working at a publishing company. For nearly 3 years, the same apartment, the same office, the same streets. Whenever autumn arrived, I felt a deep urge to leave the city behind for a few days. That year, I decided to head to Maine. No hotels. I rented an old forest house instead. It was located in a deeply secluded area of western Maine near a small lake. The nearest grocery store was almost 45 minutes away, and the property listing read, "Perfect for solitude." Back then, I thought it was ideal for a vacation. Today, I feel that sentence might have been a warning. I set off from Boston on a Thursday morning. For the first few hours, everything was normal. Then the city faded behind me. The highway narrowed. Maple, birch, and pine trees grew denser on both sides of the road. The sky turned gray. The leaves had turned red and yellow. By late afternoon, my phone signal began to flicker and weaken. Then it disappeared completely. I thought to myself, isn't this exactly what I wanted? Shortly after, the main road ended. I turned onto a narrow dirt road. The trees lining the road were so dense that even before 5 p.m., the surroundings felt as dark as dusk. About 20 minutes later, I saw the house. At first glance, honestly, I loved it. A single-story old white farmhouse, a small porch in front, 2 large maple trees on either side, a vast forest stretching out behind it, an old barn beside the house, and in front of the barn, a rusty red tractor. I parked the car and just stared at the house for a moment. No people, no cars, no sounds, only the soft rustling of leaves in the wind. I stepped out of the car, walked up to the porch. Next to the door was a small brass key box. The property owner had sent me the code. I opened the box and retrieved the key. Then I unlocked the door. The first thing I noticed upon stepping inside was the smell. Even though the house was old, there was no musty or damp odor. Instead, it felt as though someone had been here just a few hours ago. The kitchen counter was clean. A folded newspaper sat on the dining table. Half-burned would lay in the fireplace. And next to the living room stood a rocking chair. The chair was swaying very slowly. I stopped in my tracks. Then I looked toward the window. The window was closed. There was hardly any breeze. Yet, the chair was rocking. I reassured myself. Probably the floor. I put my luggage down. Then I stopped the chair. Everything went smoothly until evening. I lit the fireplace, made some soup, and sat down to read a book with a glass of wine. Outside, pitch darkness had fallen. I quickly realized nighttime silence here wasn't like the silence of the city. In the city, even at night, there's always the distant hum of cars, an apartment door closing, someone talking, a dog barking. Here, there was nothing, absolute nothingness. When I looked at the clock for the first time, it was 10:45 p.m. Right then, I heard a sound from behind the house. I looked out the window. Nothing was visible. A few minutes later, again, crunch, crunch, as if someone was walking on dry leaves. I stood up, walked over the window, parted the curtain slightly. Darkness. But deep among the trees behind the house, I saw a faint light, like a flashlight. The light remained motionless. I stared at it for nearly a minute. Then the light went out. I figured it was probably a hunter. But this late at night, this deep in the woods, I tried to push the thought aside. At least I attempted to. 1:26 a.m. I was fast asleep. Suddenly I woke up. I don't know why. The room was pitch dark. Rain had started falling outside. I was about to roll over and go back to sleep. That was when I heard it. Someone was talking downstairs in a very low voice. I sat up in bed. I couldn't make out the words clearly. Just a man's voice, then a woman's voice, and then a child's laughter. My heart sank. I walked over to the bedroom door, opened it, and peered into the hallway. Darkness. No sound. Slowly, I made my way down the stairs. I stood in the living room. The fireplace had almost burned out. The rocking chair was swaying again. I stepped toward the chair. Suddenly, the chair stopped dead still. At that exact moment, a child's voice spoke from right behind me. "Mom!" I whipped around. No one was there. I searched the entire house. Empty. The doors were locked. The windows were shut. I walked into the kitchen. That's when I noticed the newspaper I had seen on the dining table earlier that afternoon was now lying on the floor. I picked up the newspaper and set it back on the table. Underneath it lay an old photograph. I hadn't seen it before. The photo showed a family standing together. A man, a woman, 2 children, and behind them, this very house. On the back of the photograph, it was written October 1987. I turned the picture over and looked at it again. Nothing unusual. I tucked it away in a kitchen drawer. I couldn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next morning, I called the property owner. He picked up. I asked in a casual tone, "Did a family live in this house before?" There was a few seconds of silence on the line. Then he asked, "Why?" I replied, "I found an old photograph." He went quiet again, then said, "It's an old house. Lots of things get left behind." I added, "There was a family in the picture." He answered, "Just throw them away." His voice had shifted abruptly. I pressed, "Why?" He blurted out, "Just throw them away," and hung up. I stared at my phone for a few moments. At the time, I still assumed the owner was just hiding something mundane. I wasn't thinking about anything paranormal. In the afternoon, I went for a walk around the property. As I approached the barn, I saw the main door was padlocked. However, a small side window was open. I peered inside. Inside were old farming tools, dust, wooden crates, and on the wall hung a calendar. The year on the calendar, 1987. I froze in surprise. Then, on the wall nearby, I noticed a child's drawing, drawn with crayons. A house, 4 people, and behind the house, many dark, looming trees. Underneath the drawing, written in a child handwriting, was a single sentence. "They come when the lights go out." I stood motionless for a moment. Then I backed away and left the barn. That evening, I turned on every single light in the house. I didn't want darkness to fall. Around 11 p.m., the power cut out. Total darkness. I fumbled around searching for my flashlight. Just then, I heard the sound of a door shutting upstairs. Thud. I froze. I was certain I had left all the doors upstairs wide open. Gripping the flashlight, I moved toward the stairs. Reaching the top, I saw the door at the far end of the hallway was closed. I opened the door. The room was empty, but right under the window lay a small wooden toy horse. I picked it up. Then it struck me I had seen this toy somewhere before. Yes, in the picture, in the hands of a child from a 1987 family photograph. I placed the toy horse back on the floor, turned around, and right at that moment, I saw someone standing at the end of the hallway. A woman, a white nightgown, long hair. She stood perfectly still. I couldn't utter a word. She wasn't looking at me. She was staring toward my bedroom. I blinked once. The woman was gone. I bolted downstairs. I decided to take my car and leave that very night. But as I opened the front door to step outside, someone was standing right in front of my car. A man. I flashed my light. No one was there, only trees. I unlocked the car door and got in. Just then, a child's voice came from behind me. "Don't go." I turned. No one. Then a second time, "Please don't go." I got inside, locked the doors immediately, and turned the key. The engine wouldn't start. I tried again. Nothing. I glanced at the dashboard. The fuel gauge was over half full. The battery light was glowing. I couldn't understand why. Then, tap, tap, tap. 3 distinct knocks on the rear car window. I didn't turn around. Tap, tap, tap. Then a woman's voice. "Chloe." I held my breath, sitting petrified. She knew my name. I had never mentioned my name to anyone except the house owner. A few moments later, the car engine suddenly roared to life. I slammed my foot on the accelerator and sped away down the dark road as fast as I could. About 20 minutes later, I realized something was terribly wrong. The road I had driven in on, I couldn't find it anymore. I was driving in circles over the exact same stretch. A large maple tree, a broken fence beside it, then an old mailbox. I slammed on the brakes. I realized I had passed this exact spot at least 3 times. The GPS wasn't working. I switched off the headlights, looked out into the dark, and then I saw it flickering through the trees. That same house. How was this possible? I had driven miles away from it. How could the house be right here? I didn't step out of the car. Right then, a light turned on in an upstairs window of the house. Then in a second window. Then a third. One after another. I was about to shift into reverse and step on the gas when 4 figures appeared at the window. A man, a woman, 2 children. They were all standing side by side in front of the glass, staring straight at me. Then the woman raised her hand and slowly pressed her palm against the glass. I turned the car around and drove frantically. This time, the real road finally appeared. Toward dawn, I pulled into a small gas station. An elderly cashier was working there. As I bought coffee, I described the house to him, listening to me. He fell silent for a moment, then asked, "Which house?" I gave him the location. The expression on his face completely shifted. He said, "That's the old Bennett place." I gasped, "Bennett?" He nodded. "Family disappeared there in 1987. I recalled the photograph. He continued, "Father, mother, 2 kids. I asked, "What happened to them?" He replied, "Never found." I said, "But the house is still standing there." He stared at me intensely for a few seconds and said, "No." I insisted, "I stayed there." He shook his head. "House burned down in 1988. My entire body went cold. He reached under the counter and pulled out an old newspaper clipping. I recognized the picture instantly. That house, except in the newspaper picture, where the house should have been, there was only a charred foundation. I couldn't say a word. After returning to Boston, I tried calling the house owner. The number was no longer active. My reservation history on the booking website had vanished completely. Yet, I had a confirmation email in my inbox. I opened that confirmation. The dates, the address, everything was there. But when I read the sender's name, my heart stopped. Bennett Family Estate. I had never noticed that name before. And strangest of all, at the bottom of the confirmation was a small note, one I had never seen prior. It read, "Please leave the door unlocked when you leave." I immediately began digging through county property records. I found the 1987 missing family report. I found their pictures too. The same family, the same house, the same 4 people. But one detail terrified me to my absolute core. Beside the family photograph in the old newspaper clipping was another small photo, a picture of a teenage girl. Her name, Chloe Bennett. Age, 14. I stared at that photo for a long time because her face didn't just look like mine. Her face was my face. To this day, I don't know how that is possible. I had never known about that family. I had never seen their pictures before. Yet in the photograph found inside that house, I looked identical to one of them. And almost a year after the incident, one night, an envelope was slipped under my apartment door. No stamp, no return address, only my name written on the front. I opened the envelope. Inside was an old photograph. The same family from 1987. Except this time, the picture was different. Instead of 4 people, 5 people were standing together. The father, the mother, the 2 children. And standing right beside them was me. On the back of the photo, a single sentence was written. "You forgot to close the door." That very night, I locked every single door in my apartment. Then I went to my bedroom and lay down. At 3:12 a.m., I woke up. I heard it. My living room rocking chair was swaying back and forth. A rocking chair that I had never owned in my apartment. Then, a child's whisper. Very soft, very close. "Mom." I sat frozen on my bed. A few moments later, knock, knock, knock. 3 gentle taps on my bedroom door. I didn't open the door. I still haven't. Because now I understand one thing. Not all lonely houses are empty. Some houses, even long after people leave, wait for something else to arrive. And sometimes they bring you there just to make you realize you were never a guest of them. You were the lost family member who finally returned. Story 4, the person standing outside the window. My name is Hannah Cole. I grew up in the city from childhood. Tall apartment buildings, streetlights, the sound of neighbors' cars. That was normal to me. So when my fiancé Ryan suggested renting an old house deep in the forest of Oregon for a few days, I was hesitant at first. Ryan had said, just 4 nights. No phones, no work. Just the 2 of us, a fireplace, and a lake. You'll love it. I asked, "How isolated?" He smiled and said, "Pretty isolated." I had no idea what the phrase, "pretty isolated," actually meant. The house was located in a remote part of Oregon's Cascade Range, about a 4-hour drive from Portland. The last hour was almost entirely on a rough gravel road. Late October, the leaves were changing colors. A light drizzle was falling. Dense forest lined both sides of the road. It was so thick that nothing was visible beyond the reach of our headlights. Ryan was driving. I sat in the passenger seat. At one point, my self-service dropped completely. Ryan remarked, "Perfect." I said, "You call everything perfect." He chuckled, "Because it is." About 10 minutes later, he stopped the car. In front of us stood an old wooden gate. Beside the gate was a small sign, "Private Property." Ryan got out of the car to swing the gate open. I looked toward the house from inside the car, through the gaps in the trees. I could only see the roof at first. Then the house came fully into view. A 2-story wooden house, dark brown siding, a porch out front, 2 upstairs windows, and surrounding the house, endless trees, no neighbors, no streetlights, no trace of human presence, only woods. I looked at the windows and asked, "Does anyone actually live here?" Ryan replied, "No, seasonal rental." That was when I noticed it for the first time. A curtain in the upper right window was moving. I assumed it was the wind, except the window was closed. The moment we opened the front door, a scent of old wood greeted us. Inside, everything was tidy. A stone fireplace in the living room, 2 large sofas, a dining table, a fully equipped kitchen. Upstairs had 3 bedrooms. The very last bedroom was locked. I asked Ryan, "Why is that room locked?" He shrugged. "Owner, storage." We dropped the topic. The first day went wonderfully. We went for a walk by the nearby lake, returned before evening fell. Ryan lit a fire in the fireplace. I cooked dinner. By 9 p.m., the 2 of us were sitting in the living room. Outside, a soft rain was falling. Suddenly, a sound came from upstairs. Thud, a footstep, a pause, then another. I looked at Ryan. He offered, "Probably the house settling." I gave a faint smile, but the sound repeated, faster this time. Creak, 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 as if someone was walking down the hallway. Ryan stood up. I pleaded, "Don't." He chuckled softly. "I'm just checking." He walked up the stairs. A few seconds later, he returned. Nothing. I asked, "Are you sure?" He nodded, but his expression had shifted. I asked, "What?" He insisted, "Nothing." I didn't press him any further that night. The second night, 12:38 a.m., Ryan was fast asleep. I got up to use the bathroom. Walking down the hallway, my eyes happened to dart toward the locked upstairs bedroom. The door was closed, but from underneath the door, a thin sliver of light was bleeding out. I froze. A warm yellow light, as if a lamp was switched on inside. I called out to Ryan. He woke up groggily. "What?" I whispered, "There's a light under the door." He stared at me for a couple of seconds, then got up. The 2 of us stood in front of the door. Ryan reached out and turned the knob. "Lock?" He knocked on the door. "Knock, knock." "Hello?" No response. I suggested, "Maybe the owner left something on." Ryan nodded slowly. "Probably." But as we turned to walk back, I glanced behind me. The light underneath the door had gone completely dark. The morning of the 3rd day was unnaturally still. No rain, no wind, not even the sound of birds. I sat on the porch with a cup of coffee. Suddenly, looking toward the woods behind the house, I noticed something, a narrow path cutting through the trees. It looked as though someone walked that path regularly. I said to Ryan, "Let's check it out." He instantly cut in, "No." I looked at him, surprised. "Why?" He replied firmly, "Just don't." I scoffed lightly, "You're the one who wanted an adventure." He stayed quiet, then added, "Owner specifically said not to go behind the house." I asked, "Why?" He gave no answer. That was the moment I realized Ryan was hiding something from me. In the afternoon, while Ryan was occupied, I went for a walk alone, not toward the front of the house, toward the woods in the back. After walking for about 5 minutes, I came across an old wooden fence. Beyond the fence lay a small clearing, and in the middle of the clearing, an old stone well. Stacking stones surrounded the well. Beside it stood a crude wooden cross. No name on the cross, only a single date. October 31st, 1984. I stood there in silence for a while. Then, from a distance, I heard a sound, a human voice. "Hello?" I turned around quickly. No one was there. Again, "Hello?" Closer this time. I ran back toward the house without looking back. That evening, I confronted Ryan about the well. He remained silent for a long moment, then said, "I told you not to go back there." I demanded, "What happened out there?" He didn't answer. I pressed harder. "Ryan, what happened?" Finally, he gave in. "Owner told me someone disappeared there." I asked, "Who?" He replied, "A woman." When? 1984. I asked, "Was her body ever found?" He shook his head. "No." At that point, I still assumed these were just local ghost stories. Nothing more. But that very night, everything shattered. 1:52 a.m. I was asleep. Suddenly, I opened my eyes. Ryan wasn't in bed. I sat up and called out, "Ryan." No response. I opened the bedroom door. The hallway was pitch dark. Then I heard his voice from downstairs. "I'm here." I went down the stairs. In the living room, Ryan was standing motionless in front of the window, staring outside. I asked, "What are you doing?" He didn't reply. I stepped up beside him. He kept staring outside and whispered, "She's back." I asked, "Who?" He pointed toward the window. I looked. Standing in front of the house was a woman. She was far off in the distance, dressed in black, hair hanging wildly over her face, unmoving. I murmured, "Maybe someone needs help." Ryan grabbed my arm tightly. "Don't open the door." I asked, "Why?" He whispered, "Because she's been there since 1:20. I checked the clock. 1:54 a.m. "So?" Ryan's voice trembled. "She hasn't moved." The two of us stood ducked behind the window, watching. The woman was still, absolutely frozen. Then she lifted her head, stared directly at our window. I recoiled backward, but Ryan remained fixated. Slowly, the woman raised her hand and pointed straight at the locked upstairs bedroom. Then she faded into the darkness. The next morning, we decided to pack up and leave immediately. Ryan started the car. The engine fired up normally, but 5 minutes down the road, the car stalled dead. He tried restarting it. It wouldn't turn over. I asked, "What's wrong?" He popped the hood and checked inside. After a few minutes, he said, "Battery." I argued, "The battery was completely fine yesterday." He said nothing. We had no choice but to head back to the house. Ryan tried calling the owner. No signal. We waited around for a while. Around noon, the car unexpectedly started right up, but Ryan said, "Let's stay one more night." I protested. "No," he reasoned, "it's getting dark. We shouldn't drive this road at night." Reluctantly, I agreed. That very night, I opened the door to the locked bedroom for the first time. Ryan was down in the kitchen. I was standing alone in the hallway. Looking at the door, I felt as if someone was whispering from inside. SSSH. I approached the door. Next to the latch was a small keyhole. I touched the handle. Strangely, the lock clicked open on its own. I pushed the door open. The room was nearly empty. A bed, a wooden dresser, an old photograph on the wall, and a chair beside the window. I walked up to the photograph. It showed a woman in her early 30s. Beside her was a young girl, and behind them, this house, inscribed below the photo. October 31st, 1984. It struck me instantly. This was the woman, the one who stood outside our house that night. I took the picture down to look closer. Then I noticed an old notebook sitting on the dresser. I opened it. The first few pages were blank. Then an entry. She comes to the window every night. On the next page, Do not answer when she calls your name. And on the final page, if you see her inside the house, it is already too late. I snapped the notebook shut. Right then, the door slammed shut behind me. Bang! I spun around. I was alone in the room. I rushed to open the door. The handle wouldn't budge. I yanked with all my strength. It wouldn't open. Then, behind me, the chair creaked sharply. Slowly, I turned my head back. Sitting in the chair was someone, a woman, that exact same woman. Black dress, damp hair, face obscured. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out my throat. The woman slowly lifted her head. Through the gaps in her hair, her face was revealed. Her eyes were completely black. She spoke. "Why did you come back?" I stammered, "I've never been here." She smiled, very slowly, then whispered, "Yes, you have." Suddenly, the door flew open. Ryan found me collapsed on the hallway floor. He dragged me outside the room. I was crying uncontrollably. He asked frantically, "What happened?" I couldn't speak. I just pointed toward the locked bedroom. Ryan rushed over to the door. No one was inside. The chair was empty. The notebook was gone. The photograph was gone. Everything had vanished. I sobbed. I saw her. Ryan remained silent. Then he confessed, "There's something I didn't tell you." I looked up at him. He said, "I've been to this house before." I gasped in shock. "When?" He replied, 2 years ago." "Alone?" He nodded. "Yes." I asked, "What happened back then?" He stayed quiet for a long moment before whispering, "I saw that woman too." My chest turned ice cold. He continued, "And before I left," he paused. "What?" He said, "She asked me to bring you back." I stared at him, horrified. "Why?" He didn't answer. We drove away that very night. This time, the car ran without a single issue. Toward dawn, reaching the main highway, we stopped at a gas station. I went into the restroom to wash my face. Looking up into the mirror, I saw the reflection of a woman standing directly behind me. I spun around instantly. Empty. I looked back into the mirror. In the reflection, the woman was still standing there. Except now, she was standing right behind my back. I screamed and darted outside. Ryan pulled me into a tight embrace. I sobbed. She followed us. He said nothing. Then he looked toward the car. On the passenger side window, pressed from the inside, was a handprint, a wet handprint, and beneath it, traced with a child's finger in the condensation, were the words, "Come back." We never returned to that house. A few months later, my relationship with Ryan came to an end. I never asked him again why he had taken me there. However, almost a year later, I was digging through a county archive database. I found a record of the woman who disappeared in 1984. Her name was Hannah Cole. I sat staring at the screen for a very long time because my name is Hannah Cole too. I still wanted to believe it was just a strange coincidence until I opened the photograph of the missing woman attached to the archive file. Written underneath the picture, Hannah Cole, missing October 31st, 1984, and the face of the woman in the photo resembled my face so closely that I couldn't remain sitting in front of the screen. But the most terrifying detail was a tiny note written below her photo. Last seen standing at the upstairs window. To this day, I do not know what truly happened in that house, but I know one thing for certain. The woman I saw that night didn't attack me. She only asked one question. "Why did you come back?" And sometimes I wonder, maybe she hadn't mistaken my identity. Maybe I really had been there before for some unknown reason. I just don't remember it. Tap, tap, tap. Even today, whenever I hear that sound, I never look toward the window, because I know if someone is standing outside your window, they might not just be watching you. They might be waiting for you to finally call them by their name. Story 5, The Last Light in the Forest. My name is Ethan Parker. In my life, I have never believed in ghosts. Even now, I cannot say for certain what truly happened during those 4 nights. But one thing I know without a doubt, deep within the Appalachian Mountains, far from human eyes. There are places where the line between daylight and nighttime darkness disappears very quickly. And one of those places was meant for me. An old house, a narrow mountain road, miles upon miles of forest on all sides. And in front of the house, a light I first saw after dusk fell, and saw for the last time when the house was no longer supposed to be there. It happened in early November. I was living in Pennsylvania at the time. My job was working as an insurance claims investigator. Work required me to travel regularly. However, after months of relentless pressure, I decided to take a few days off and rent a secluded cabin in the Appalachian Mountains. The house was located in a remote mountainous area of the Appalachian region, near the West Virginia border. The property listing described it as a private mountain retreat. No neighbors surrounding the house. The nearest town was about half an hour away, and there was no guarantee of cell service. That was precisely why I chose the place. I wanted to be completely alone for 4 days. I arrived there on a Friday afternoon. The sky was overcast. Towering hardwood trees lined both sides of the road. Almost all their leaves had fallen. The last few miles of the road were so narrow that 2 cars could not pass side by side. Then the road worsened. A gravel road, mud in some spots, rocks in others. Finally, I had to cross an old wooden bridge. A narrow creek ran beneath the bridge. The water appeared pitch black. I drove across slowly. Then, a left turn onto a trail. Beside the path stood a small wooden sign, Cabin 7. I brought the car to a stop. Ahead lay a small mountain slope, and atop it, the house. At first glance, I liked the house well enough. 2 stories, dark brown wooden siding, a porch in front, a chimney, a small woodshed to the right of the house. And right in front of the house stood an old lantern post. A yellow light was glowing inside it. I was surprised, because the property owner had explicitly mentioned the electricity would remain off until I arrived. I stepped out of the car and looked at the lantern. The light was swaying very slowly, yet there was hardly any wind. At the time, I assumed perhaps a solar light or a battery-powered lamp. I didn't give it any further thought. Using the door key code, I stepped inside. The interior of the house was very clean. Living room, kitchen, fireplace, 2 bedrooms on the upper floor, and a small study room. Old hunting photographs hung on the walls. In one picture, several men were deer hunting. In another, a family stood together. The photos appeared at least 20 to 25 years old. I walked into the kitchen and opened the refrigerator. Inside were bottled water and some food items. The property owner had informed me that basic supplies would be provided. I prepared dinner, then lit the fireplace and settled onto the sofa. Outside, dusk was settling in. Around 7 p.m., I glanced out the window. The lantern out front was still glowing in its light. A few steps of the porch were visible. I drew the curtains closed. Nothing unusual happened that night. At least, that's what I thought. The next morning, I woke up at 6:40 a.m. I came downstairs and brewed some coffee. Then I went outside for a walk. In the morning light, the forest looked beautiful. Fog clung low beneath the trees. Behind the house lay an old trail. After walking about a mile, I reached a small clearing. Standing there was an old stone chimney. No house, just the chimney. Beside it lay pieces of charred wood. It looked as though a house had stood there many years ago. I turned back. On the way back, I suddenly felt someone was walking behind me. I stopped. The footsteps stopped. I walked. The sound resumed. I looked back. No one was there. I told myself, dear. Then I returned to the house. Toward evening, I noticed something strange. I was standing on the porch. The lantern was lit. Suddenly, the light went out. I waited a few seconds. Then it flickered back on. I chuckled to myself. Faulty wiring. But a few minutes later, the light went out again. This time, complete darkness for nearly 10 seconds. Then, a light in the hallway inside the house turned on. I froze, because I had turned off all the lights inside the house. I looked toward the front door. Is someone inside? I unlocked the door quickly and stepped in. No light in the hallway. Total darkness. I went upstairs. All rooms were empty. Then I walked into the study room and saw a lamp burning on the desk. I switched off the lamp. Right there on the desk, I noticed an old notebook. Written on the first page of the notebook, Cabin 7 guest log. Curious, I opened it. Names of past guests. Dates. Short comments. Beautiful place. Great fishing. Very quiet. All completely normal. Except the last few entries were different. One entry read, heard footsteps outside at 2:10 a.m. Another, someone knocked 3 times. And then the light came back. I frowned. The date of that final entry was November 7th, 2016. I looked down at my own arrival date, November 8th. A difference of exactly 1 day. I closed the notebook. That very night was the first time I heard that sound. 2:10 a.m. I was fast asleep. Suddenly, knock, knock, knock. 3 knocks on the front door. I sat up in bed. A few seconds later, again, knock, knock, knock. I checked the clock. 2:10 a.m. My blood ran cold. I didn't go downstairs. A few minutes later, a man's voice called out from outside the door. Ethan? I froze. Someone knows my name. The voice called out again. Ethan, I know you're awake. I gave no answer. Then, a long silence. Then footsteps. Someone moved away from the door. I tried to peer through the edge of the window curtain. I couldn't see anything. Then the lantern out front flickered on, and in the lantern's glow, a man was standing. He was about 30 feet away from the house. A black coat, head bowed. Still, I could see him, but his face wasn't visible. I stared for a few seconds. Then, he raised his head, staring directly at my window. I let the curtain fall. The next morning, I called the property owner. This time there was cell signal. I asked, "Does anyone come around the property at night?" He answered, "No." I pressed, "Does anyone live nearby?" He said, "Not within several miles." I mentioned the 3 knocks on the door. A few seconds of silence on the other end. Then he asked, "Did you see the light?" I went quiet. "Which light?" He said, "The lantern." I replied, "Yes." He offered nothing further. I asked, "What's wrong with it?" He said, "Nothing." I countered, "Then why did you ask?" He murmured, "Because that lantern hasn't worked in years." Silence on the phone. I said, "But it's turned on every night." He spoke in a very low voice. "Don't follow it." Then he hung up. That afternoon, I inspected the exterior of the house thoroughly. Walking up to the lantern post, I checked. No wires. No battery compartment. No solar panel. The lantern was indeed very old. Blacks inside the glass. Yet no fuel whatsoever inside it. And still, the light glowed. I reached out and touched the glass. Unnaturally cold. I jerked my hand back instantly. Then I noticed an old metal plate on the ground beneath the lantern. Wiping away the dirt, I could read the inscription. November 7th, 2016. I froze in place. That exact date, the date written on the final entry of the guest log. Before dusk fell, I made my decision. I was going to leave that night. I tried starting the car. The engine wouldn't turn over. I tried again. Nothing. The battery was fine. There was fuel, yet the car refused to start. I popped the hood and checked for a few minutes. Couldn't find any issue. That was when I realized I was trapped. Night fell completely. The lantern flickered to life. This time, I didn't draw the curtains. I stood there watching. A short while later, I saw that man again, in the same spot, in the glow of the lantern. Except this time, he wasn't alone. Beside him, a woman, and in front of them, a young boy. All 3 of them were looking toward my house. I closed the curtains quickly. 2:10 a.m. Again, 3 knocks. I didn't go downstairs. Then a child's voice. "Ethan?" I stood with my eyes squeezed shut. The child spoke. "It's cold." I gave no response. Then, "Please let us in." I thought to myself, what if they are real people? What if someone is truly in danger? Then I remembered the property owner's words. "Don't follow it." I didn't open the door. After a while, the knocking ceased. Then, the exact same sound from behind the house. Knock, knock, knock. I spun around. Then from the side window. Knock, knock, knock. I realized they were circling the house. Suddenly, a noise came from upstairs. Thud. I ran upstairs. The door to the guest bedroom was open. Inside lay an overturned old wooden chair. And on the wall, a photograph. A photo I hadn't seen before. A family standing together in the picture. A man, a woman, a young boy, and behind them, Cabin 7, inscribed beneath the picture. November 7th, 2016. I picked up the photo. Then my eyes drifted to the right side of the image. Another man was standing there. A man, his face obscured in shadow, but his attire, a black coat. I dropped the photograph onto the floor because I had been seeing the exact same man wearing that black coat outside the house for the past 2 nights. I went downstairs and sat in front of the fireplace, waiting for dawn. Then at 3:47 a.m., all sounds abruptly stopped. No wind, no rain, no creaking of wood, nothing. I looked out the window. The lantern was still lit, except this time, no one was standing beside it. I slowly walked toward the door. I don't know why. Perhaps curiosity, perhaps fear, perhaps human instinct. The very thing that pushes us forward into places we shouldn't go. I opened the door. I looked toward the lantern. Beneath it in the dirt, fresh footprints. 3 sets. 1 large, 1 a woman's, 1 a child's. They led directly toward the house. I followed the tracks. But arriving right in front of the porch, the footprint stopped. No one had advanced further. I leaned down to inspect the ground. Right then, the front door slammed shut behind me. Bang! I turned around. The door had locked itself. I twisted the handle. It wouldn't open. Then from inside the house, a man's voice spoke. Extremely close. Ethan. I froze solid. The voice said, "Don't turn around." I held my breath, standing paralyzed. Then, right against my ear, someone whispered, "It's already behind you." I don't remember anything after that. When I regained consciousness, I was inside my car. It was dawn. The car was moving. I was slumped over the steering wheel, but I wasn't driving. The car was navigating the road on its own. I slammed on the brakes immediately. The car screeched to a halt. I looked around. I was on the main highway. My cabin was miles behind me. I stepped out of the car. A short while later, I went to a local police station. I didn't tell them everything. I only mentioned hearing strange noises at the cabin and leaving in the middle of the night. A deputy asked me, "Which cabin?" I gave him the location. He stared at me for a few seconds, then said, "That's not a rental property anymore." I asked, "What?" He looked at his computer screen and said, "Cabin 7 burned down in 2016. Everything inside." My chest stopped. I said, "That's impossible." He continued, "Fire killed 3 people. A man, a woman, a boy." I couldn't speak a word. He added, "The owner was never able to rebuild it." I asked just one question. Who was the 4th person? The deputy looked up at me. 4th person? I said, "A man wearing a black coat." He shook his head. 4 people were reported missing that night. I asked, "Who was the 4th? He pulled up the old archive report, then raised his eyes to look at me. "Ethan Parker." My hands went cold. "That's you." I whispered. "No," he said. "Report says Ethan Parker was the 4th person staying there." I stared at him for a few seconds. Then I realized the report was dated 2016. I had been there in 2023, yet in the police record, my name had been written 8 years prior. Later, I retrieved those property records myself. The 2016 fire report indeed listed 4 names. 3 bodies had been recovered. The 4th person was never found. His name, Ethan Parker. My exact name. I know logic can offer many explanations for this story. Names can coincide. Someone could have used my identity. A database could contain an error. But one thing, I still cannot explain to this day. After returning from that trip, I found a small object inside my luggage, an old metal key. I didn't know what it belonged to. Attached to the key was a small brass tag. It read, Cabin 7, and engraved on the back was a date, November 7, 2016. I kept that key locked inside a drawer for many years. Last year, I opened the drawer. The key was gone. Instead, an old photograph lay inside the drawer, a burned cabin, for people standing out front, a man, a woman, a child, and me. But the most terrifying part of the photograph lay elsewhere. Behind them, that lantern was glowing, and written below the photograph in handwriting, the light is still on. I don't know where I truly was that night. I don't know if Cabin 7 truly existed or not. I don't know how that photograph came into my possession. But even today, every year on the night of November 7th, the light outside my house turns on by itself. I don't switch it off, because I don't know if I turn off that light, who might walk out from the darkness of the forest and stand at my door, knock, knock, knock. And if you are ever driving down a lonely mountain road deep in the night, if you spot an old house through the gaps in the trees, and if a single yellow light is burning in front of that house, please do not stop your car, because perhaps that light isn't showing you the way. Perhaps it is only making sure that you have seen it. And if someone calls your name from inside the house, do not answer, because some voices do not call people for help. Some voices only want to make sure whether you are still alive. True Horror Vault, main outro. You were listening to True Horror Vault. Tonight, we heard 5 unsettling stories of 5 secluded houses deep in the forests of America. Some stories have no explanation. Some events have no direct evidence. And some doors perhaps should never have been opened. But the most terrifying part is, across thousands of miles of vast American woodlands, there are still many cabins whose exact locations remain unknown to ordinary people. Perhaps no one has gone there for years. No cars have driven by. No human has opened the door. And yet, on certain nights, lights flicker in the windows of those houses. And if someone sees that light and stops, perhaps their story will reach us one day too. So if you want to stay connected with this dark realm of True Horror Vault, subscribe to the channel. If you enjoyed the video, please like it, and let us know in the comments. Have you ever seen something on a lonely road, in a forest, or on a mountain path that you could never explain to this day? Your experience might just become the next story on True Horror Vault. That concludes our session for tonight. But remember, in the night forest, the most terrifying sound isn't always the snapping of a branch. Sometimes, the most terrifying sound is your own name, whispered by someone from deep within the dark. Nathan, good night. And whatever you do, don't answer when the forest calls your name. This is True Horror Vault. Until next time, stay out of the dark